Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of the Stokes Sound Podcast. I'm your host, Ed Stokes, and today I'm joined in person with the absolute legendary mixing engineer, Leslie Brathwaite. Leslie, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. So glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on and doing it in person as well.
Absolutely.
You enjoying London so far?
Loving it. London is one of my favorite spots as well. And I love the area that I usually stay in, the Soho area. So I walk around. I go to little old school record shops and the sneaker stores. And
amazing.
I love it.
Amazing. Fantastic. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. And today's episode is about kind of work-life balance. You know, obviously you're very, very successful in mixing. And one thing that I really resonated with was kind of how, you know, you have a family, you live your life, yet you have, you know, plenty of Grammy Awards and you've done very well. So, you know, it'd be great to kind of, first of all, if you want to give yourself an introduction, kind of talk about yourself. I mean, a lot of people will know who you are. And
I don't want to talk about, no.
a lot of people know who you are. I heard your mixes. So, but you know, if you can give yourself an introduction, that'd be fantastic.
I will say very briefly, my name is Leslie Brathwaite. I'm a mix engineer. I graduated from Full Sail University in 1992. I've been living in Atlanta ever since. And I really came in right at the birth mark of like trap, Southern trap music, and you know, the Jeezys and Gucci Manes and all those kind of that sound. And but I've been in Atlanta working with Dallas Austin with a bunch of different producers, helped develop the 90s R&B sound. And I've just been fortunate to be there, and I'm still in Atlanta, still based in Atlanta. And I mix records. I mix records for a living. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. And yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Amazing. Do you know, and I just absolutely love, you know, one thing that I really like about you kind of as a mixer is kind of as well is like how kind of your workflow works. And, you know, of course we will get technical, you know, we can't not get technical.
Absolutely.
I love this subject and I love talking about it. So we will, but you know, if we just kind of go back then to like the very start, you know, how does like your week kind of work out, you know, when you're mixing all these records and, you know, I assume, you know, it's quite high pressured work if you're working with, you know, A-listers and all of that sort of stuff. So if you just kind of run us through like your day to day. And
the thing about it is it's not typical. There's no typical day.
Yeah.
And what it is there's been a huge surge in technology that has helped me to mix on the go. And so with the emergence of technology where I can literally, in my backpack, I have everything I need to mix a record. I have my laptop, my Apollo, and some headphones. And if you got the right tools, you can mix records on the go. And what that did is really opened up life for me. It really made it to where that work-life balance that we're going to talk about, that becomes really efficient. Being able to mix at the drop of a dime and still enjoy my life traveling. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. I literally just got in from Greece. I was on vacation for the past week and a half, literally got here yesterday from Greece, and I get a call from Jack Harlow, and he goes, "Hey, I got a record I need to send you right now. Can you mix it tonight?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Love
that. So
that's incredible.
I'm ready to go in my laptop with headphones. And then fortunately enough, I, you know, call a friend who is over at Studio 13, which I'll be at tomorrow doing some stuff. And then I go, "Hey, do you guys have an extra room that I can use?" And they were like, "Sure, da. But even if that opportunity didn't open up for me to use the room, I got everything I need. I could have mixed the record in my hotel room." So technology makes it to where that kind of pacing and balance isn't as stressful anymore, because back in the day, I would have been stressing to find a studio and stressing to make sure I can get back in the studio in case he wants changes. So even like having the studio last night, I only booked it for a few hours, for like 3 hours, get the bases of the mix done. And then from there, I never need a studio again to finish the mix, because I can do all the changes in the hotel, on the road, sitting in an Uber, on a ship, on a plane.
That is, do you know, that's incredible, because it's like the way your kind of your thought process and the way you kind of mix the records, it's like breaking every single like barrier. Because it's like in education, it's like, you know, you need to mix in like a treated studio, or you need to, you know, and then it's like, I'm sure we'll get to the story, but when you like mix Cardi B out of the back of a truck, and I'm just like, we spend all this money on like great studio gear and all of this, and then you just go and do that. And I'm like,
part of the formula for success is you have to understand how to do the craft, but you also have to keep up with life and technology and movement and advancement. And part of this thing is you got to be able to move quickly. And so you have to, and even like with we can get into that story now if you want to.
Go on then.
So, perfect example. So, I had just gotten home from Full Sail and COVID started, the quarantine started. And so, I'm hunkered down in the house and I now know, okay, I have to mix records from home if I'm going to mix. And then the first record I get called to mix as the quarantine starts is Cardi B's WAP. Now, if you've heard the record, that is not a record you can mix around a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old girl. I got 2 girls, and I can't mix Cardi B in the house. So I thought to myself, okay, and you got to think, we're all home. So, my 14-year-old, she's going to school on her laptop in her room. Yeah. My 11-year-old is in her room going to school on her laptop. My wife is working from home. So I'm like, I can mix from home, but I can't mix this record in the house. So I was like, we always go to the car to reference records. Yeah. Cars are acoustically sound. I like how things sound in my truck. I should try mixing in the truck. And then I start the wheels churning like, oh, I can, just bring the setup in there and run an extension cord in just to power the Apollo and the computer. And I can just plug into the aux in the car system. And I tried that at first and I was like, oh, that sounds good. And I was like, I can bring my focals into the truck and I can bring my sub. I had a little KR10 KRK sub at the time. It fits right between the captain's seat in the second row.
It was made for you.
It literally I dropped it in and it fits snug in there. And I was like, that's how I know this is going to work. And then I folded the captain's chairs down in the second row while I sit in the third row. Right. And so I put a couple cushions and then I stacked the focals on top. Yeah. And I had a full setup and it was great because I would just back the car out of the garage, obviously. Yeah. And I would start the car. I'd have the car on. So I'd have AC. Okay. I'd have, everything chilling. And then I have power coming in, so I'm not using the car's power. And it was like my little office and I could make as much noise as I want. You could barely hear anything coming out of the car. Yeah. And it was great. It was a private place to work. It sounded good. Yeah. Was it comfortable? It was comfortable. Yeah. And I got the mix done. And amazing. I was like, this can work. So I started mixing quite a few records. Jack Harlow, What's Poppin', I mixed in there. I mixed a few records in that setup. And then after a while, when the kids started going back to school, it started being not practical because then I had to take all the stuff out, take them to school, put all the stuff back in. I was like, okay, I got to get a room in the house.
So do you find like your productivity has been much quicker kind of working from home? Because I seen before COVID, you were working at a studio. And so the transition.
That's an interesting question. Before COVID, if you would have asked me, hey, can you work from home? And me and my wife have had this conversation so many times. Yeah. And I used to be like, I cannot work from home. It'll be too many distractions. And I don't think I'll get into my flow. And, because I could come up with every reason why I didn't think it would work. Yeah. And then I was forced to work from home. Yeah. And then I realized something really magical about working from home. What I realized is I learned how much time I wasted in the studio. And here's what I mean. In the studio, everybody speaks my language. Yeah. So I can have 50 offshoot conversations about kick drums and the Roland
I know the feeling.
Juno or old school drum machines. We can have conversations all day and then I won't get my work done. At home, nobody speaks my language. So I don't have the distractions at home. And then the other thing is the kids are off to school. My wife is working all day. Yeah. So for that work day from 10 in the morning until 6 o'clock, and you can say even past that till about 7 because my girls are out doing activities after school. They're doing soccer and cheer and da-da-da. So from 10 o'clock to 7 o'clock, nobody's in the house.
So you can get all the work done.
And I can get all the work done, no conversations. And so what I found is working from home, I'm actually way more efficient. Because I just get the work done. And then it's almost like I got into a routine as well because I knew I only had a window of, like I said, from 10 to about 7 where I can make a lot of noise. Yeah. When the kids come home and they're doing homework and I want to pipe it down a little bit. So I've learned to get into a routine of, okay, from 10 to about 5, I make all the noise in the world. And then from about 5 to about 7, that's when I take my break and I take my me time. So I'll go on a walk. I try to walk at least 3 miles a day. Yeah. I'll come in from the walk. I'll work out a bit. I'll do some dumbbell curls or da-da-da. Yeah. Then I'll take a shower. And then it's family time. So I'll do homework with the girls, watch TV, and then when everybody goes to sleep, then I do all the quiet work. So I can do like edits, clean versions, stuff that I can do in the headphones. And it works. And that's my...
So when do you sleep then?
That's my pattern. Then I go to sleep after that.
Yeah.
So I wake up kind of like in the middle of the day-ish. Like I wake up around 11, 12 something.
Yeah. So how many records can you then mix in a day then with this kind of product?
Sometimes it just depends on the ease of the record. Sometimes I can mix 2, 3 records in a day. Sometimes 1 record a day. It just depends on... A lot of times it depends on the deadline. It depends on how easy the records are. It depends on the artist. Like, so for instance, with the Jack Harlow record, Jack doesn't like the record to sound too far from the rough. So it took me last night maybe 45 minutes to mix that record because it was just about making sure the beat hits, but keeping the vocals exactly how he had them. He has a certain flow and a pattern that he likes. And so with certain artists, the mixing process it doesn't have to be complicated.
So did he send you then the Pro Tools session so you worked from the session and then that way you had the rough mix?
And I worked from the session that and that's usually how I work anyway. That's why working with an artist like Jack, it works where he knows I'm not going to get his session and just start from zero and deconstruct everything. I'm going to work from where they had it. And I'm just trying to build it and make it better. And
amazing.
And sometimes it's very subtle things. Sometimes you will look at the totality of stuff I actually did to a thing. And it wouldn't be that much. For some mixes, it's very minimal. And that's okay. It doesn't have to have... I think a lot of times where I've seen old school engineers, their ego gets wrapped up in it and they feel like they have to do a lot of stuff. And they have to put a lot of stuff on there to make it feel like they really did something. And sometimes mixing can be as simple as, you know what, let me just make this kick hit a little harder. And let me turn these vocals down a little bit, and let me move that keyboard out of the way with a little bit of EQ, and we're good. And that's kind of what happened last night.
It's so funny because I noticed that with your work because, you know, I love Mix with the Masters and you've done a few videos for them. And I remember, I got a little story. So about 10 years ago when I was in college, I was 17 and Pharrell Williams' Happy came out and I know you mixed that record and we had this like a assignment, like an exam kind of thing, and it was to produce a record and mix it, right? And it was like choose your song that you want to do, and ended up trying to recreate Happy Pharrell Williams and try and do the mix, and I was spending hours listening to that mix thinking, what is he doing, you know, how's he doing it? And then I watched the Mix with the Masters video and it's so simple what you're doing, but I think that's where you're so great at what you do because you know when to not do something and know when to do something.
Absolutely.
Which is the skill in the mixing. And that's one thing I noticed with you a lot.
Yeah. Part of mixing, it's funny, I was on a flight one time and I was talking to a guy, we were striking up conversation, and this was actually a flight to Dubai, so it was a pretty long conversation.
Flight.
But he and I got really cool, and he was a surgeon.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was talking to him about what I do. So at first the conversation was very surface, but of course it's a 17-hour flight. Yeah. So by the time we're like 10 hours in, we're deep into like each other's, you know, worlds and understanding. And he said something super interesting to me. So when I said, I described to him, because at a certain point he goes, no, tell me, what do you really do? Like, explain your job to me. Explain mixing. Like, what is mixing? And when I explained it to him, and I even said, you know, sometimes it's about what I don't do. Sometimes I just do minimal moves. And he said, you know, that's a lot like surgery. He said, imagine a surgeon, because he's a surgeon. He said, imagine if I go in there to fix one little problem. Yeah. Then if I see all these other things that I could fix and I start cutting this and moving this and doing that, and I could actually kill this person.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah. Never thought
what I do. What he does is, as a surgeon, he says, I go in for the thing I went in for. Even if I see something looking a little weird over here, I don't meddle too much because I go for the thing I'm coming to fix.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was such an interesting correlation as we talked, how you can find pieces in other people's experience, even though what he does is very different from what I do.
Yeah.
You know,
no, it's interesting because I would never really thought about the surgeon and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So with your kind of then mixing process, obviously, you know, like work-life balance, you've got to be productive. You know, I'm sure you don't have time to spend 3 days on a mix. You've got, you know, things to get on with and stuff. So your kind of process of mixing then, you don't seem to overthink it. You know, right. A lot of people seem to, especially the younger mixers, they will think they need to add this plugin, they need to do this because they've seen someone else do that, where you're quite minimalistic in that sense, which I love, by the way. I think that's great. And
overthinking can really kill your process because what happens is I say this all the time. You can unravel a mix just as much as you mixed it.
Yeah.
You can second guess every single move you made until you literally unravel the thing you built.
Yeah.
And so for me, I always go off of feel. I always go off of, does that feel good?
Yeah.
Does that not feel good? And people always ask me, when do I know I'm done? And it's when I start unraveling. When I start asking myself too many questions in a row, when I
Yeah.
start going, should I turn that kick up? Should I turn this down? That's when I know I'm done.
Yeah. I feel like there's loads of mixers.
Because you
Yeah.
can just sit there and second guess everything you do.
Yeah.
And to me, the goal is to work to a point where it feels good.
Yeah.
And once it feels good, I turn off my creative brain.
Yeah.
And now it's just managing any mistakes or things that just stick out.
Yeah.
And then I'm cool. But
Do
so
you ever
to a
feel
certain
like-
point, I cut my creative brain off, and now I'm just like, let me make sure everything's good. Did I miss any curse words? Did I miss any this?
Yeah. Do you feel like, though, that the pressure, I mean, you know, you've done this for a long time, so I'm sure that the pressure isn't as much. I mean, if you're working with someone that's obviously quite well known, do you feel, or you've got a, you know, in with a good producer, do you feel, have you ever felt that you've had to do more than you needed to do to kind of
I think
show-
that's one of the biggest mistakes people can make.
Yeah.
Is, to me, that is the thing that defines is the difference between a professional and an amateur.
Yeah.
As a professional, you have to be able to do your job no matter the content.
Right. Yeah.
If you approach it like, well, I'll do a great job if it's Beyonce, but if it's this artist that's unknown, I'll slack a little bit.
Yeah.
You're not practicing greatness.
Yeah.
And it's something you hear all the greats say. I remember Kobe Bryant was talking one time about how he approaches every single practice like it's a finals
Love that.
game 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
He approaches practice that way.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, is you have to realize that what we do, this is a practice. It's every single day.
Yeah.
So anything I touch, I don't care if it's some unknown artist that
Yeah.
I met on Instagram that wants me to mix a record for a couple $100, and
Yeah.
I feel sorry for him. I'm gonna go, all right, send me your $700. I'll mix your record really quick.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. I
Yeah.
still put the same care and effort creatively and musically into their work that
Yeah.
I would, you know, something I'm getting paid $7,000 to do. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter, because it's all about that craft and that thing that's in you. You have to do that to your best.
Yeah.
And here's the thing
Yeah.
that I say it all the time, and I know it sounds cliche,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that unknown artist can be a Beyonce, a Pharrell,
You never
a
know, I
so-and-so.
guess. Yeah,
You
yeah.
never know. When I met Beyonce, she was 12. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Okay. Yeah.
One
Yeah.
thing I love about my career is a lot of the people who I've mixed throughout my career, I mixed their first records. I was like on the ground floor.
That's amazing.
So if I had that
Yeah.
mentality,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be mixing their stuff now when they blew up. I mixed Jack Harlow's first records, Cardi B's first records.
Yeah.
I can go on and on about
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of the big stuff that I mixed.
Yeah.
I mixed their first projects, Jeezy,
Yeah.
Lil Wayne. I mixed
Amazing.
these first projects, and I took just as much care when they weren't anybody. When we didn't know who Beyonce was,
Yeah.
I took just as much care. She was in a group called The Dolls at the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, before Destiny's Child, they were called The Dolls.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Joe, it's so good to hear that, because it's like, I feel like people always aim to just work with celebrities.
That is the biggest mistake.
And it's like, when I hear that from someone,
if you
that is-
only strive to
yeah.
do your best when the lights are on,
Yeah.
when the attention is on you,
Yeah.
to me, that's not a good way of really becoming good at your craft. You strive to do your best all the time. Just make it it becomes part of your DNA. I don't know how to work any other way than to do something to the best. You should watch me. Like, my wife makes fun of me all the time. Like, when I love wrapping gifts for Christmas, and I will wrap a gift, and if it's just not corner perfect, I will start all the way over and then
Like a
start
perfectionist.
again. And I want it.
Yeah.
Everything I do, I
Yeah.
just try to do it the best I possibly can.
Amazing. So, but do you ever feel like, because you're always doing it like the best you ever can, I mean, do you ever feel like you can overthink it, or is, like you say, with that barrier, you kind of just put that barrier when you...
And that's the balance. The balance is, I don't overthink it, but what I know is, I know quality. I know when something is good.
Yeah.
So I know how to take steps to at least do a good thing. I'll give you a perfect example that has nothing to do with music.
Yeah.
I was on a cruise last week in Greece, right? I'm sitting next to this group of people, and the lady says, "Hey, do you mind taking a picture of us?" And I said, "Sure." And she hands me her phone, and then I wipe off her camera, and I take the picture, and she makes fun of me for wiping off the camera. So I take the picture, and she looks at the picture, and she goes, "This is the best picture on my phone." And I was like, because every time, and I'm sure my friends see me do it all the time. Every time I take my phone and I'm going to take a picture, I always wipe off my lens. Because if your lens is clean, you are ensuring that you're going to get a clean photo. I can't tell you what annoys me more than seeing people take pictures with their phone and the picture looks all fuzzy and blurry because of fingerprints and da-da-da. So my point is, if you already have that built-in mentality that this thing that I'm going to do, this lady's going to hand me her phone, ask me to take a picture, and I'm just going to do it to the best of my ability.
Yeah, I guess it's going to that extra mile, isn't it, in everything?
That's the mentality. Whatever it is I'm doing, I have to do it to the best of my ability. And if it means wiping off her lens so she gets the best photo.
Amazing. Love that. I feel like have we wiped our lenses now?
I do it all the time.
So, when you're mixing then, I mean, if you're working with an independent artist and then you're working with, an A-list artist, I always find this. Do you ever feel the pressure from, because like if you're, let's say, doing a Cardi B record, it's going to reach a certain, well, no one ever really knows exactly how well a record's going to do, but do you ever feel as a mixer that you have pressure because of who the artist is you're mixing compared to if it's an unknown artist? I know you have that mentality, but
there is a little bit of pressure to that. Yes, because there is a human factor to know that the brand new artist from Instagram whose song isn't that great, probably isn't going to get heard as much as a Cardi B record. Even if the Cardi B record isn't that great, it's Cardi B. She's already established an audience and they're waiting. So like when I mixed Bongos a few weeks ago, I knew there was going to be an anticipation of, okay, I hope this sounds good or feels good or that.
How do you deal with that? Do you just
you just do your best? I try not to get too in my head about it. I love Rick Rubin's approach to things where when as a creative, you don't really care about the audience. You don't care about what they think. That's not how to approach this. You just do the best you can. How it's received isn't my problem. It's how I deliver.
Good way of thinking it.
How it's received. It isn't my problem because I can't control that. I have no control over how something is received, so I don't make that my issue.
Amazing. So is there a lot of kind of, when it comes down to like revisions then, and that revision process, do you find that when you're working with independent artists compared to, again, I guess A-listers, is the revision process different? Do you feel like the revisions, I guess, are completely different when it's kind of someone that's already established?
So there's two sides to that. So usually with established artists, A-list artists, you have a lot less revisions. Because they trust you, and they know you're good at what you do for a reason. And then B, sometimes they just don't have the headspace to like go deep on critiquing a mix. They do what
too busy.
A lot of times, the newer artists, they have all the revisions in the world.
How would you handle that?
But because they're nervous, they're insecure, they don't know, they're learning the process. But what you also find is the seasoned artists who do have a lot of revisions, sometimes it's not about the revisions or the mix. That's just about their process. And you have to understand that sometimes people just need to go through their process. And to me, the best way to navigate anything in life, one of the best books I've ever read is The Four Agreements. And one of the agreements that you make with yourself is you don't take anything personal. And when you can navigate a situation where when you're the mixer, you're in a service position. Your thing is to serve the artist, to get them what they want, or the producer or the label person. And when you can take criticism without taking it personal, then you remove your ego. And then it's about understanding that a lot of times, this is so consistent with a lot of artists. Usually, if they have a lot of changes that don't make sense to you, it's usually they don't even like the song. They're trying to like the song. And you got to just let them go through their process. It has nothing to do with you. And when you learn that, you have a certain place of zen that it just doesn't bother you. So
do you do the changes for them though, even if you're like...
Absolutely. I do them. And sometimes I don't hear what they're hearing. Sometimes I don't like what they're going for. But again, you have to learn that there's balance. Yes, I want it to sound a certain way, but this is not my thing. I'm still in service to
the artist making it as best for them.
So It's not about what I want. It's about what Beyonce wants. It's not about what I want. It's about whatever the artist wants.
Yeah.
And then from there, a lot of times, I can tell you more often than not, whenever you get a A-list artist that has a ton of changes
Yeah.
and you can see that it's about the process,
Yeah.
they usually say at the end of it all, you know what? Put it back to how you had it. I liked it.
Make sure you save the first mix then.
It was always always the process.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Amazing.
never about the changes. It's the process for them.
Yeah.
And when you understand that, you're less stressed. You're less, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah. How do you handle then the stress then with work life?
I don't stress. Yeah, I don't. This is not a stressful thing to me.
Yeah.
It is easy for me to always keep perspective. It's so funny. So this morning, I got a gentle reminder of perspective this morning. Gabe and I were leaving the hotel, and Gabe had made friends with the cleaning lady.
Yeah.
So he's waiting for me out in the hall. So I come out. She's the nicest lady. Her name is Nicoletta, and she goes, can I do anything for you? Da da da. And I was making jokes. I was like, well, she was like, can I give you the moon? What can I do for you? And I said, you can give me $5 million. And she goes, you have your health, you have your arms, you have your legs, da da da. She was like, you are rich already. And so
it's so true though, isn't it?
That was a gentle reminder. And she went
Yeah.
on to tell us about her husband died 5 years ago and how much she loved her husband and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So her point was, it's interesting. People always ask for money and we tend to think that money is the end all be all. But her point was, you have everything you need. You're
Yeah.
healthy. You're walking. You're talking to me. You're about to go eat lunch. You're good.
About perspective, isn't it?
So
How you view
that
it.
was a gentle reminder. Even when I'm working with artists that are difficult to work with, da da da, I never stress because I'm like, you know what? I'm doing something I love. There's nothing I love more than being in the studio.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stress about it. I'm going to let them have all the stress.
Yeah.
And I'm just blessed to be here doing this thing that I love. And I actually get to make a living doing this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing.
I love that. I love it because everyone's always like, it's so stressful.
It's amazing. I never stress. So that was a gentle reminder this morning of that kind of perspective.
Do you feel by not stressing has, in a way, obviously you're very good and you've worked hard, but do you feel like that element of not stressing has led you to, I guess, more success?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the thing about being an engineer or being a mixer and dealing with an artist, you always got to remember something about every single artist. I don't care if it's Beyonce or lower level artists. They're all insecure at some point. And when the person who knows how to work every button in the room, your mood actually determines how they feel. It's no different from a pilot on a plane.
Yeah.
If a pilot comes on the airwaves and goes, ladies and gentlemen, hey, just want to let you know we have to circle back to the airport. We have a little problem with the engine, da da da, but we'll be on the ground shortly, da da da.
Yeah.
You take that a lot better than if he comes on, he goes, everybody, we're fucking dying. The plane is going down.
I'd be so scared.
That's my point. So his mood is going to determine how you feel about the rest of that flight. And it's the same thing as a mixer, as an engineer, as the person who knows how to work every button in that room. How you conduct yourself then kind of guides the mood of everything else. So
Amazing.
Not panicking when stuff is on fire, when something's not working. Your mood determines everything and
just
can
go with the
determine
flow,
everything.
I guess.
So you learn that you actually can influence how artists feel. And to your point, that then leads them to feel more comfortable with you.
Yeah.
And then they go, you know what? I like working with Leslie. I've heard people like Pink. Pink said it one time, we were having a conversation. She was like, she would much rather work with an engineer who she feels comfortable around than an engineer who knows how to do everything quickly and great.
Yeah.
It's comfort.
It's interesting.
It's that person who...
It makes them perform better, I guess, if you're...
if you're not stressed, then I'm not stressed.
Yeah.
And that's what they love. Or that person who knows when to talk, when not to talk.
Yeah, yeah.
When not to speak, when not to... those are the things, I call them the soft skills.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are the things that will get you work all the time. People would love working with you if they want to be around you.
I think a lot of people forget
forget And it comes down to even practical things. Like I tell students all the time, I go to Full Sail to talk to students.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how I walk into a classroom and half the students smell musty. And I'm like, nobody wants to work with you in a studio all day long if you don't personal hygiene. You know what I mean? And those are, it's
the
funny,
small things,
but it's practical. I can't tell you how many times I've had Kelly Rowland used to always say to me, she would come in the studio and she would always come hug me and she would say, Leslie, you smell so fresh. I just love how you smell all the time and blah, blah, blah. But that goes a long way with people. So
don't get good at mixing. Just make sure you put deodorant on.
Just make sure you smell good. But it's all the things, you know.
Amazing. Love it. So in your kind of then process of when you're mixing to stay productive and that kind of stuff, do you use templates or do you not use templates? And what's your kind of
I don't like
that?
the template approach. I like to approach everything with a vibe of what does this thing need? And to me, it helps you work more efficiently because if I just slap on a template, there's nothing funnier to me than when I get a session where you can tell the engineer who worked on the session works off of a template. And so you have a song like Happy, right? Where literally she's saying in the hook, happy, 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 happy in that part of the hook. But there's a de-esser on those tracks. And I'm like, there's no S's happening here. So I put things based on what's needed. And I think it makes the things sound better and it just helps your mind to kind of focus in on what you're working on. Because if you think in terms of a template, to me, your work gets robotic. You start trying to get the work to fit into your thing. And to me, it should be the other way around. What I do should fit the work.
Love that because it's interesting because a lot of people say, "Oh, use a template, speeds up your process."
In a way, it can for some people, but for me, I just like to approach it like I like to approach it like, what does this thing need? Does it need a de-esser? No. Okay, I don't put a de-esser on it. Or does it need a so and so? Yeah. So, you know, I just approach it based on what the work is and what it needs.
From your videos as well that I've seen, you don't seem to have much on your mix bus either.
Yeah, no. To me, less is always more. And it's about simplicity. And I think technology has advanced in such a way to allow us to do less on the back end of mixing because so much is done on the front end. You can really craft, even you hit a drum machine, you hit sounds out of a keyboard, they sound good already. You don't have to do too much to them. Back in the day when certain things sounded a little more trashy or had a lot more noise to them, then you had to find tricks to figure things out. But now technology is so good and so dope that you don't have to spend too much time making things sound amazing. You really don't.
That kind of goes on to the next thing then, because you're fully in the box, aren't you? You're completely in the box.
Completely in the box.
Do you feel like that has enabled you, you know, of course, when you're traveling, you can actually mix, but do you feel like you're limited in any way, or do you feel kind of the opposite?
I think it's the opposite. I think limitations come when physical limitations, when you have to be on a big board around all the gear and that's limiting. But I also think what people don't realize is even though analog sounded familiar to us at a point, there are companies like UAD and all these other companies that develop amazing plugins and emulation technology to where you can achieve lower lows than you can in analog. You can achieve higher highs than you can on analog. Now it doesn't. There's a familiar sound to analog. But there's still depths and heights that you can go to in a digital realm that you can't in analog. And it's just about what you're used to. It's like every other advancement in technology. Of course, when you grow up hearing a thing, the thing about generational process is every generation thinks their music is better than the next generation. That's just I can't tell you how many times, like you hear right now, there are people, especially in the 50th anniversary of hip hop, there's all the old heads talking about the state of hip hop and how young people are destroying hip hop, and it just sounds like mumbling and I can't tell you how reminiscent that is of when I was a kid listening to Fat Boys and Houdini. And my mom was like, "That's not real music. This is terrible." To me, it was real music. And that's the whole thing. So every generation thinks it's their job to hate the next generation's music. But the reality is it's all relative. So it's the same thing with analog and digital, where the analog cats, it's just what they're used to. But the new generation, my kids, they're used to a certain sound. They're used to the digital sound. So
can't get rid of all my outboard gear now.
They don't care if, they don't care if something sounds like analog. They just want it to sound like Taylor Swift or like,
what a good song.
My daughter's the 14-year-old. She's into Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo. Far from analog. Like, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, love it.
yeah.
So do you ever kind of, as a mix then, when you listen to those kind of records,
Mhm.
do you ever kind of, think, how have they done that? Even though you're you're doing it yourself, do you look at other people's techniques,
Absolutely.
and
all the time.
how do you kind of go about that? Do you know?
Sometimes I just pick up the phone. I remember when Charlie Puth,
Yeah,
when the Attention song
love
dropped.
that track. Great low end. Well, everything about that track is great.
It gets,
Vocals.
to this day, look, it gives me goosebumps. Look at my arms. As soon as we mention it, goosebumps.
Wow.
I love that so much that I literally picked up the phone. I called Manny
Yeah.
Marroquin, who mixed that record, and I said, bro, I hope you got a minute because I want to know what you used. What are your reverbs? And we sat on the phone for like 4 hours just nerding out.
Can you tell us a little bit?
I'll let him share his secrets. But no, I mean, that's the thing about all of the mixers too. We're so gracious with each other. It's like we're like colleagues. We're not competing.
So
we pick up the phone all the time and call each other and be like,
yeah,
bro, this thing sounds so good. What did you use? And Guru, Jay-Z's engineer.
Yeah.
I remember when WAP came out, Guru was the first person on my phone going, bro, this record's hitting so hard. Please tell me what you did on the 808s. What'd you use? It sounds amazing.
What did you use?
The Little Labs Voice of God is one of my biggest
I started using that because of you.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I get my low end to sound like you?
Little Labs Voice of God. And so when I
anything.
told him about it, he was mixing a Rhapsody album at the time. And he called me back and he was like, bro, this is the cheat code. This is amazing.
I don't know what that plugin does. It just sounds
It's amazing. And so that's how we call each other.
Amazing.
Yeah, we geek out. It's just fun to try to figure out what people did. Yeah. But it's even more fun to just pick up the phone and call them and be like, bro, what did you use on so-and-so? Or I'm calling Tom Lord Algie on, hey man, yo, I'm not good at, I was mixing Uzi.
Yeah.
This time around, Lil Uzi Vert, and he had some rock stuff on his album. He redid Chop Suey.
Okay. Yeah.
From System of a Down. He redid that. Okay. And he had some heavy guitars, and that's not really my world. And I picked up the phone and I called Tom Lord Algie and was like, hey, bro, I know this is your world. Can you help me? Can I send you this mix and you tell me if I'm, messing this up or if I'm And he listened to it and he was like, yo, no, bro, you nailed it. It sounds good. Yeah. He was like, maybe a little more top end on this, but here's what I do with my guitars and here's what I would use. And I was like, oh, write that down? Okay. Boop, boop, boop. Do it. So we share techniques all the time.
It's great to hear that because I feel like a lot of people that, if you're in like the top 1% of mixing engineers, I think, there's a lot of people that are obviously trying to be, in the top mixing. And I think a lot of people think that there is some certain secret, but I think it's so great in 2023 with social media, mix with the masters.
No secrets.
It's just the amount of content that you guys gear out to everybody.
Because what we all know, and it's so funny because we came up, I'm talking about all of us, me, Manny, Guru, all of the top mixers. Yeah. We came up in an era when we were assistants that the engineers we assisted for, they kept secrets. Yeah. And they thought it was, I'm going to cover the board with paper so nobody can see my recall settings or da-da-da. And they didn't, what we all knew and what we all evolved to understand is if the four of us in this room, I can give all four of us the exact same tools, the exact same sounds, and we're all going to make something different.
Is at the end of the day,
we're different.
Yeah.
No matter, I can give you all the information and the tools I use.
Yeah.
But the gifts that I have, for me, I'm a spiritual person, so the gifts I have come from God.
Yeah.
You can't do a thing the way I do it. God put that in me. Yeah. So we can have the exact same tools, the exact same plugins, the exact same everything, and we're gonna do it differently. So I have no problem sharing my information, how I did a thing. It's not a secret because the gift in how it works for me is only designed for me. Yeah. So there's no way me giving you information can hurt me in any way.
So did you start then, so in your career then, you were a recording engineer and then you kind of transitioned into mixing? Is that, so, for the newer days, mixing engineers, in the modern day, a lot of people, like say, watch Mix with the Masters and look at kind of, the older engineers, the old generation engineers, and kind of look at how they did it. So in your sense, and when you were growing up as a recording engineer and transitioning to mixing, how did you kind of find the path of what you did to kind of get to where you are today? I know that's kind of a long question, but it'd be interesting to know that.
It's a typical path of you come in,
Yeah,
you prove your worth at a studio, you intern, you show them how valuable you can be,
yeah,
how much you want this, and then you start picking the people that you assist for.
yeah,
You start picking different techniques. You
yeah,
start saying, "Oh, I like how he did that. I'm going to do my thing that
yeah,
way." And I like this philosophy. I'm going to do that thing that way. And I like this philosophy and I'm going to do that thing that way. So you just start gathering all your you start learning all the different things that speak to you, the things that resonate with
yeah,
you, and you go, "Huh, I'm going to start doing that."
yeah. Well,
So
you resonated with me with how simple with your mixes,
right. So
because I
and
was just
that's usually the
expecting.
thing that a lot of people I
Yeah,
can't tell you how many times I go to Mix with the Masters. I do this week-long seminar, and everybody, Gabe was one of them that will tell you, you know what, after the seminar,
yeah,
you opened up my eyes, not necessarily about any specific trick you did, but your mentality
yeah,
on
but
how
yeah,
quick you were mixing, how quick you were making decisions,
yeah,
how you were just feeling it. And a lot of times, a person like me, all I'm doing for someone attending a seminar or somebody I'm teaching is I'm really giving them permission to do the thing they innately wanted to do.
yeah,
I'll give you a perfect example. I was mixing the record,
yeah,
and I do this thing at Mix with the Masters where I walk through my process, and then sometimes I'll say, okay, now this one, I'm gonna mix a record from start to finish. I'm not gonna take any questions in between. So
yeah,
write all your questions down
yeah.
because I want them to get a sense of the pace
That
of
you,
how fast I mix.
yeah,
So I mixed the record, and in the end, the first question that came was, so something blew my mind. You grabbed a frequency and you turned it all the way down. Or you did this thing and you turned it to like +9.
yeah.
And he said, I've always wanted to do things like that, but I just thought it was wrong.
Yeah,
And that is the
yeah,
main thing. When
yeah,
you can learn from somebody that will unlock that for you and get you to understand no move is wrong. If you need to take that sound, that's frequency all the way out,
yeah,
take it all the way out. If you like a frequency to where a kick will knock, if you bump it up +9,
yeah.
the 9 is there for a reason.
But do you not ever think to yourself, I'm doing too much? Not I'm doing something, but like, I don't know. I'm just trying to think if I was in that
The only
yeah,
question I ask is, does it feel good? That is
that is the
that
answer,
that
isn't
is
it?
the number one.
Yeah,
This is the thing I always say to them when they ask me, "Hey, do you ever feel like you're doing too much?"
yeah,
Stop all those other questions. Does it feel good?
yeah.
End of story.
Feels good. It's correct, I guess.
End of story.
Do you feel like with kind of social media then in the modern day mix? I mean, I know you said that you started as a recording engineer, you transitioned, you learned from all of the people that you wanted to learn from. Nowadays, I feel like that's less of a thing in the sense of more people are kind of like say watching Mix with the Masters instead of kind of interning at a studio. I mean, obviously it will depend.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
learning is learning. So
yeah,
wherever you get the learning from, and here's the thing, I'm still learning. I still tune in.
yeah,
I watch. Here's the thing that fascinates people when I say it.
yeah,
When a new Mix with the Masters video dropped, all of my colleagues who have also led seminars at Mix with the
yeah.
Master, I watched their videos. I
Love
watched
that.
Jason Joshua's video.
Yeah,
I learned something from his video. I watched Chris Lord Alge. I learned something from him. Learning is a continuous process. So I learn all the time. I watch and learn a technique or two or learn a thing or Jason will say something. Here's what I learned from Jason Joshua. True
yeah,
story. I was watching his thing one time, and it's funny because I was struggling with the very thing he was talking about
yeah,
at the moment. Here's what he talked about. He said, for me, and this is the beautiful thing. He's not, and none of us are preaching the gospel in a sense of you have to do it how we do it.
yeah,
What I'm saying is, come learn something. This is what I do. Whatever I do that resonates with you, take that with you.
yeah,
Whatever I do that doesn't resonate with you, that's cool too.
yeah,
So he was saying something one time. He was like, I got to a point in my career where I stopped mixing things that I don't like because I realized I wasn't doing the best for the industry in a whole when I'm
yeah,
mixing things that I hate. And for some reason, that resonated with me.
yeah.
And I thought about it, and I was working with a client at the moment, and I hated her music, and it was really brutal getting through the mixes. And I called her and I said, you know what? I don't think I can finish this project. I didn't tell her why because I still wanted to keep that bridge.
Okay, but you turned the
But
project
I
down.
turned it down. I said, you know what? I'm not going to be able to finish the rest of this because something spoke to me
Yeah.
about, and I called Jason. I told him, I said, bro, that was powerful, saying that, you know, you don't want to work on stuff that you don't love. And I started adapting that, and it opened up doors for me. So what I used to do is I used to think, well, every opportunity I get, I got to take it because I don't want to disrespect the culture. I want to make all the money I can make. There are engineers out here who are starving. So let me take whatever opportunities
take all the opportunities.
I get.
Yeah.
And then I started going, let me take Jason's approach. Let me turn down a few things that I feel like either might be stressful or I don't like them. What it did was it cleared room for better, easier, bigger paying clients to walk in my door. And I was like fascinated by it. So again, I learned all kinds of things from different people. Yeah. That was I called Jason immediately when I heard him say that. I was like, bro, you might have shifted my trajectory.
Kind of mentality of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find though, like when you're working with certain artists, your production affects your mix massively in the sense of what your I keep coughing.
It's all good.
So
we all have COVID now.
No, it's need water. So you know, like when you're working with independent artists and then you're working with the big artists, do you feel that the production difference is quite big in that sense? Or...
Yeah, sometimes, but I think too the gap is closing on that, where you have these young 12-year-olds that use Fruity Loops
technology
or FL Studio, as they call it now.
Yeah.
And that kid who's 12 or 13 that made a beat on FL Studio has got a beat on Cardi B. That kid is doing Cardi B beats. Or so you'll find a lot of these beats that end up on the bigger artists. It's some kid that's 15 that did a FL Studio beat that, you know, so the gap is closing on quality in a sense of everybody has the tools now. And so what you find is there's talented kids or people in different areas that you wouldn't have expected that are coming up with some really cool stuff.
How do you find the kind of the rough mixes then? And, you know, like obviously back in the day, you'd record and everything would be quite organic and it would kind of be mixed kind of on the way in. But now it's like the sounds are so good.
Yeah, rough mixes tend to be a little better now.
Yeah.
Rough mixes used to be brutal back in the day. And then the artist would be like, well, make it sound like the rough. And I'd be like, this rough sucks.
Just make it louder.
Yeah. So, but a lot of times with rough mixes, what I've taught and what I've learned is, even when a rough mix sucks, it's not really, they're not attached to the mix. They're attached to how something in the mix makes them feel. So, a perfect example. A rough mix, I remember one time I was mixing a record and the artist was like, you know, make it sound like the rough. And I listened to the rough and the rough mix was horrible.
What did you
do? There
was
one distinctive factor that I noticed in the rough mix.
Yeah.
The hi-hat was loud as hell. So what I made sure to do is I mixed the record how I thought it should sound, but then I made the hi-hat annoyingly loud, much louder than I would have made it in general, because that's the thing I knew they were attached to.
Did they want that in the end?
They were attached to the energy of how that hi-hat was making them feel. The mix was terrible, but it was about that hi-hat being so annoyingly loud. It was actually adding to the energy of the record. So I made my mix just better, but the hi-hat was super loud.
Too loud.
And they loved it. They absolutely
did.
Loved
they go
the
with
mix.
it? They weren't the one that was too loud.
They were like, "Oh, this is amazing."
It's very subjective,
because
isn't it?
I knew that's the thing they were attached to. So sometimes you also have to learn how to read the language of the artist. You have to kind of know. You have to kind of develop a language with the artist sometimes. Sometimes they don't know how to really communicate or express what they want. I'll give you a perfect example. True story. First met Cardi B.
Yeah.
She's pregnant. And this is the label calling me to say, hey, we got this artist. We just signed her. Her name is Cardi B. You might have seen her on the Housewives show and da-da-da. And I had no idea who Cardi B was at the time. Yeah. Because I don't watch any of those kind of shows. But apparently she was like a reality TV star.
Okay, yeah.
And they go, we just signed her. She's, you know, I'm telling you, she's going to be a star. Craig Kalman himself called me, head of Atlantic. And he goes, Les, I'm telling you, she's a star, but we only got a week to mix her album because she's pregnant and we want to shoot all these videos. And so we're going to bring her to Atlanta, da-da-da.
The whole week to mix the whole album?
1 week. Okay. So they bring her to Atlanta.
Pressure's on.
Pressure's on. But they know, because I mix quick, I was the guy for the job.
Yeah.
I work with females really well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So they bring her to Atlanta. She comes in, and the first thing they had was there was a guy in Canada who mixed a record for her that was going to be on some Canadian show and da-da-da.
Right.
And she was trying to improve the mix, but she hated the mix.
Okay.
So she goes, hey, good to meet you. We talk for a minute. And then she goes, I have a problem that I need you to help me solve. I need you to help me communicate to this guy because I guess the people in Canada, he had to mix the thing. And she was like, I need you to help me communicate like what it is that's wrong with this mix. I said, well, okay, play me the mix. So she played me the mix. And I was like, oh, the mix actually sounds good. And she was like, yeah, but it makes me dizzy. And the minute she said that, I knew exactly what was bothering her. She just didn't know how to articulate it. So I called the engineer. I got the info from the label. I called the engineer up. I said, hey, bro. His name was Adam. I called him. I said, hey, bro, do me a favor. There's this one sound in the song. It was the loudest sound in the song. It was kind of like that hook sound that like, it was like a siren, but he had it auto panning.
Right. Okay.
So I said, hey, bro, do me a favor. I'm going to get you this mix approved. All you got to do is one thing. Take off the auto pan on that sound. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah, take off the auto pan and send the mix back. Don't do anything else. Just take off the auto pan and send the mix back. Sent the mix back without the auto pan. She goes, oh my God, it sounds amazing. What did you do? What did you tell him?
2-second job.
Yeah. So the thing is, she didn't know how to say this sound that's panning is annoying me.
Yeah.
What she knew how to communicate was how it was making her feel.
Right.
It made me feel dizzy. So what I had to do was interpret, well, what would make her feel dizzy? Something that's
good way of thinking
like
that.
this.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So right then, now you got to remember, it's the first day I'm meeting her. Right then, I knew that the way I have to communicate with Cardi is she has to tell me how she feels, and I have to interpret. And that's been our relationship ever since. I know how she feels about a thing, and then I know what to do technically.
Do you find when you do her records now, because I guess you've done quite a lot with her, do you feel like you're getting many revisions, or like you're just doing the mix and it's done?
Yeah, and usually, same thing with Cardi. Usually when I do have a record where there's a lot of revisions and where there's a lot of going back and forth on the mix, she's actually really trying to convince herself to like the song. It has nothing to do with the mix.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I remove my ego. I never take it personal.
Yeah.
I'm never in a mood when she has 50 million changes because I know what she's really trying to do is convince herself to like the record.
It's just how you mindset the
I know. Yeah. I know how she works.
That's brilliant. Yeah. That's
so it's about feel. Yeah.
So do you find then that, like because obviously, you say you're not using a template and you're kind of just approaching the song as what the song is for. What I'm interested to know is how come when you look at a lot of mixers, I mean, depending on the mixer, of course, everyone changes, but some people have really heavy mix bus, some people don't have any. Kind of what is your reason for doing minimal processing on the mix bus? And a second part of that question would be, because you do minimal stuff on the mix bus, do you find that the mastering is changing your mixes a lot or not much at all?
Well, the reason is for mastering. So the reason why I don't do a lot of stuff on the mix bus is because I want to give the mastering engineer a lot of headroom and a lot of room to do what they have to do. When you process too much on the mix bus, they don't have much to work with. They don't have any headroom. So they can't really do much. And it's also, too, when you find a mastering engineer that, like, the thing about Colin Leonard, who masters pretty much most of the records I mix.
Yeah.
And he comes from the school of Chris Athens, who Chris used to master a lot of the records I mix. He still kind of masters some.
Yeah.
But, when you get up there, like with Colin Leonard, Chris Athens,
they're all
it's
great.
like splitting hairs. They're all great. They're amazing at what they do. Dave Kutch, Chris Scarenger, Bernie Grunman, they're all amazing.
Yeah.
But Colin masters most of the records I mix. And
is that because you choose that?
I know. I usually recommend.
Okay.
I don't get to choose, but the label will always ask, well, who do you think we should use to master?
Yeah.
Because I know Colin knows how to make it bang. He knows how to keep the integrity of the low end because he respects the genre of hip hop and he understands that hip hop drives every form of music now, pop music, even Afro beats, whatever. Hip hop drives culture. And so when you have a mastering engineer that understands the drive of hip hop and how things still have to smack, even though it's loud.
Yeah.
Chris Athens was amazing at that, still is. Colin is amazing at that. Dave Kutch mastered a lot of the Outkast records.
Okay, yeah.
Great at that. So that's the thing is I want those guys to be able to get their thing off, and I know they know what they're doing.
Yeah. So when it comes back, then I mean, obviously they're great mastering engineers, so you know that
I never even
you know they're never going to ruin your mix.
I never. Let me tell you, when it's Colin Leonard or Chris Athens in particular, I never even listen to the masters. They always. I send it to Colin. Colin will send me back the mix, and I'll be like, approved. I don't even listen, because I know Colin's work. I don't have to check his work.
What then? Obviously, you're mixing it. So when it does come back from those guys, what is the things? I mean, I know you say you don't listen.
I literally don't.
So you don't even know.
I never check Colin's work. Once I hand it off to Colin, I am out of the loop. I'm out of the process.
Yeah.
I don't even care what it sounds like after mastering, because I know he's going to do a good job.
Yeah. So how does it feel then? That kind of goes on to another question. Like how, you've obviously done a lot in your career, so you're probably used to it. But how does it feel from a mixer's perspective then, as yourself, when you're out with your family or you're on holiday and suddenly a record comes on that you've mixed? How does that make you?
What's interesting about that is it happens so often.
Yeah.
But it doesn't lose its luster. I'll give you an example. There's two examples. So the first example is me and my wife have this little game we play where whenever we're out somewhere and a song comes on that I mix, she wants me to always pinch her to let her know I mixed it. So that's the little game we play. So if we're in a public place and a song comes on and I mix, I always walk up and pinch her.
Really?
And she'll know, oh, I mixed this song.
Amazing.
So all night long, I'm pinching my wife. All night. It happens all the time. So
that's great.
Another example, I'm on a cruise the other day.
Yeah.
And there's this big party night on the cruise. And so it's a pool area party. It's a big party. It's Virgin Voyages. It's called Scarlet Night, where everybody wears red and the DJ goes insane.
Okay.
I promise you, probably about 80% of the records he played, I mixed. And that is always a cool feeling.
Like, how does that make you feel?
It's like record after record after record. Like he played Lemon, he played No Scrubs, he played and records from different eras.
Do you feel like No Scrubs then you mixed? Do you feel, because that was obviously quite a while ago, do you look at that mix and go, oh, I wish I changed it at all? Do you ever kind of?
Nah, I usually always walk away feeling pretty good about it. There are little things that you hear.
Yeah.
There are little things that you hear mixed and you go, oh, I wonder if I should have turned that snare up. Every now and then you say that to yourself. Yeah. Some of my earlier mixes, like Monica mixing her. Every time I hear Don't Take It Personal, that was my first big hit, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
Monica's Don't Take It Personal, just one of them days. Remember that record from the 90s? Yeah. Every time I hear that mix, I'm like, why did I have the chorus effect up so loud? Like it drives me nuts. Like
that's so interesting to hear.
Every time. Like the chorus effect on her hook is like blaring. But it was the thing at the time.
And it worked.
And we used this harmonizer called the H3000 harmonizer.
Okay, yeah.
And that was a thing we used to run those vocals through, the R&B songs. Yeah. And I was like, why did we turn those up so much? Like, so, but.
I suppose you can't change back what's happened.
It happens so often.
Yeah.
But it's still such a cool feeling. I was just now, before we came here, I was in the Superdry store. Superdry is like one of my favorite brands.
Okay, yeah.
So I go to the Superdry store, and it's probably about 3 or 4 records they played while I was in the store that I mixed. So
really?
Like, I love it. It never gets old.
Yeah.
But I am used to it. But there are still moments like on the cruise where I'm just like, man, this is wild. I posted about it. I was like, man, it's wild that I get to do this thing where I'm seeing. The ship holds 2,700 people, and damn near everybody was out on the deck that night.
Yeah.
So you got, at least close to 2,000 people dancing and having a good time to stuff that you worked on. It's like
that's like a dream for me. It's like one day, hopefully, I'll get that.
Yeah, it's insane.
That is,
it happens everywhere. I mean, I'm sitting on a flight and they got Happy. You know how they play music while the flight is boarding?
Yeah.
And like Happy is on the flight playing the flight coming out here. The flight leaving New York. I flew to New York and then flew from New York to Greece.
Yeah.
The flight sitting on the Delta flight.
Yeah.
We were about to take off and the plane was boarding. They played Happy. And it's like people walking on the plane singing Happy.
Do you ever say, I mixed that?
No. I think that's the fun part is the fun part for me, I'm an introvert, so
Yeah.
the fun part for me is not the recognition. It's actually the opposite. It's cool to be sitting in a place where
Yeah.
everybody's jamming to something you did and they have no idea you did it. And
You must get like flashbacks from like the mix, like itself.
oh
Going,
yeah,
oh yeah, I remember what I did at that kick.
there are I can tell you some horror stories about certain sessions. Of
I'd
certain
love to
artists,
hear it.
and then when their stuff comes on, I'm like, I was telling a horror story at the studio last night about a particular artist who I don't talk about it when I'm on, like when I'm being recorded.
Yeah.
I can tell you the story offline.
It's okay. Yeah.
But I talked about this artist and this experience, and it's funny, the record that she recorded that day, it's a very popular record, and every time I hear that record, I flash back to that actual session.
Really?
Yeah, it's wild.
You have to tell me
I'm
after.
gonna tell you, when I tell you the story, you'll be like, what the? Yeah, it's a wild story.
Amazing. So how does it work then with, talking a little bit about, I guess, the business side of mixing engineering?
Mhm.
How, when you're working with, the A-list artist, like how do you feel the credits, in the sense of, as a mixer, credits was always known to, there wasn't a lot of credits, but, moving forward in 2023, mixing engineers seem to be getting more credits and stuff like that.
Right.
How do you feel about all of that kind of stuff?
Thing with credits, early in my career, you care, as a young engineer and a young tracking engineer and mix engineer, you care about getting credit for your work because other A&Rs are looking to see who mixed this record.
Yeah.
But what I quickly learned, and it's still this way, is the people who need to know will find out. And the music industry, I've said it before, in the 90s, it's still this way. The music industry is like high school.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of knows everybody, or everybody kind of knows a person. It's like 1 degree of separation. And so it's not hard to figure out that Manny Marroquin mixed, the Charlie Puth record.
Yeah.
Or when a record comes out, it's very easy to figure out who mixed it, even if the credits aren't listed. You can find out.
Yeah.
So I'm not as concerned about it now, too. And I think that's also because I'm established. And, when you win a few Grammys and you get established and people know who you are, you tend not to care too much about getting recognized for your work because you already are.
Yeah.
So, but in the beginning of my career, I did care about it a lot. And, but
everyone, I guess.
Yeah.
That first part, but
that
you're on a lot of Grammys now, aren't you?
Yeah, that changes when you get older. Yeah.
Amazing. And so, for you then, if you were to look back now at your younger self, let's say, you were, a 25-year-old mixing engineer nowadays, would your approach in the way you've achieved the success you have achieved, do you think that would be different now, if that makes sense?
It'd be very different. It's so funny. I'm talking to Gabe this morning at breakfast, and he was telling me about his method for how he goes about getting work. And it was about really engaging with the technology now and Instagram. And he will find people he likes and reach out to them and say, hey, I like your music. And then before you know it, he's in a conversation. Then he's mixing their record. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Because he's using the times and what is functional in the times to get his work. And so I was curious. I was asking him, like, well, how do you just reach out to him and just start a conversation? He was like, yeah. And then
that's brilliant.
Before you know it, he's mixing, he's got a ton of mixes just based on interacting online. So I think if I were in this era, if I were in his stage of my career, coming up in this era, young 25-year-old, I would be doing the same thing. I would be like pounding the pavement, hitting
TikTok,
hitting people
Instagram.
Up. Absolutely. Finding stuff I like and hitting people up and saying, hey, man, that fortunately, I don't have to do that now.
Because you're established.
And it actually works the other way. I was telling him, there's some nights where I'll lay down and I look at my DMs and Instagram, and it'd be like, 6 people in my DMs trying to get records mixed. And I'm like, damn, there's money in the DMs. I'm missing out here. I always forget. I always forget to check my DMs, and every time I do, I promise you, I'm gonna check my DMs tonight, and there's gonna be at least 2 people in there wanting to get records mixed.
That's amazing, because I feel like a lot of, especially up and coming mixing engineers, that is always the question. How do you get work as a mixer? How do I find work? And it is like self-promotion. Yeah. But that kind of comes, And
I was going to say too, there's other ways too, like my good colleague and buddy, Derek Ali, Mixed by Ali.
Yeah.
So Ali, he came up with Engineers.
Yes, I know that.
Engineer site.
Yeah, great website.
And I'm on there, and I've actually gotten work through engineers. I've had people book. I actually have a message under this morning that I got to respond to of somebody trying to book me to mix a record. So I mean, it's just stuff like that too. The fact that he had the foresight and the intelligence to come up with a platform like that to help us all out. I mean,
it's a great website and it's a great way of kind of getting new
so
clients.
There's all kinds of ways. Yeah.
Do you feel like, obviously, because you're well established, they're coming to you because obviously of the past records that you've done? Do you ever feel like, as a top tier mixer, that you have competition in the sense of, will a label kind of get a few mixers to mix it and go with the best mixer? Do you ever get any of that, or not really as much?
It does happen, but I don't look at it as competition.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you how many times, like me and one of my best friends, like happened with Pharrell. We were mixing it was a Monica record that Pharrell produced last year sometime, and I mixed it, and then Fabian Marichuelo, he mixed it as well.
Yeah.
And I actually had to share the session with him so that he could take a stab at it, because Pharrell loved my mix, but Pharrell was like, it was something about the way Fabian had mixed some record that he had liked and
Yeah.
And so we were kind of competing, but we really weren't competing. I wasn't looking at him as competition.
Like a healthy relationship.
It was just like, oh, let me send you the session, dude. I'm gonna send you the session. I'm sending you everything you need. And he ended up going with Fabian's mix on that. But I've mixed so many records for Pharrell. It's not competition. It's more of
like no ego at all.
Sometimes you have a thing that connects with a record. Sometimes another mixer has a thing that connects with a record. And there's plenty of times when labels will get different mixers to mix something, and then they'll pick whichever mix they go with. But I don't view it as like this thing where I'm competing. I just do what I do.
That's interesting.
And if it's for me to get the mix, cool. And if it's not,
if it's meant to be, it'll be.
They still got to pay me. So
love that. So what's then your approach then on management? Now, a lot of mixers that I chat to, colleagues, and that, people try and reach out to management because they think that's going to get them work, or they think having a manager is going to make them look better. Like, one, do you have a manager? Or
I don't.
What's your view on it?
My view on management is, I think there is a function for management if you yourself don't possess a certain component.
Okay.
Which is, for me, it's easy to talk about business. It's easy to talk about money. It's easy for me to just make my own deals and just talk to people directly. For some people, that's not easy.
Yeah.
And so for the people who that either stresses them out, gives them anxiety, or they don't quite know how to navigate negotiations and I would absolutely suggest getting a manager. But if that thing doesn't bother you and you can do it yourself and it's not stressful, and then there's also situations too where I think managers are necessary, where I always look at management like, if you're paying somebody a percentage of money that you earn, that person should be integral to you making that money to where you couldn't have made it yourself. So if I'm paying you 20% or 15% or 10% of something that I earned, you have to be the reason why I got that thing in the first place. If you're not, if I could have got it on my own, why am I giving you 10 or 15 or 20%?
So it's all about if they open up opportunity for you to get great records.
That's when management works. So that's why I think agents work for like actors and stuff.
Yeah.
Because those agents are having backdoor deals and conversations in restaurants, getting them on movies that they probably wouldn't have gotten on themselves.
Right, I see. And do you think that's changing in the mixing world because of social media? Do you think a lot?
I think management is different now because of social media. You have it's no different. You
just do it direct, like yourself.
Yeah, it's direct to consumer. It's the same thing. Gabe was telling me this morning, where he can get on Instagram, go through a bunch of artists that he likes, and then just hit him up and be like, "Hey man, I like your stuff. Hey man, I kind of think this can sound better if you let me take a stab at the mix." Or he's managing himself by doing that.
It's great hearing that, because I feel like a lot of people, they always think that management is everything. And So I mean, kind of finishing up then this episode, what 3 things do you know now that you wish you knew when you started out mixing?
Ooh, and I feel like I answered this question when we did
you got to remember
the Lost podcast, but I can't remember what I said. So what 3 things, repeat the question.
So what 3 things do you know now as a super successful mixing engineer that you knew, that you wish you knew when you first started out?
Okay, I think I remember 2 of them that I said, and I think I touched on one earlier. First one, earlier in my career, I would take things a lot less personal. I think I used to take things personal when I was younger. Then I read their book, The Four Agreements, and it changed my life. And I didn't take anything personal.
Got to read it.
It's a must read.
Okay.
I read it at least. I've probably read it like 14 times.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
It's not a hard read. It's not a really long book, but it's The Four Agreements. I'm telling you, they will change your life.
I'm doing it.
Yeah. So I just don't take anything personal. I think I would tell my younger self that. Pay your taxes. I think for me, that was a huge lesson I had to learn. I was young and making a lot of money, and didn't realize that you got to pay the IRS.
You're the tax man.
In the US, you got to pay the IRS. I don't know how it works in the UK or.
Yeah, we've all got to pay taxes.
Yeah,
definitely.
So make sure that you handle your business, and it kind of feeds off the last thing you said, which is if you're not cut out to do business yourself or understand too much. Like, for instance, I hire an accountant because I don't like doing accounting and books and da. So I have an accountant. I have a CPA that does my books. So make sure you're just handling business. What's the third thing I would say? Just don't get discouraged. Just keep working, even in the times when things don't feel like they're working out. I bet most people in life have experienced this, where you're working at a thing or you're doing a thing and it just doesn't seem like it's working out. And then one day, everything works out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes a whole bunch of pieces fall into place all at once.
Yeah.
And I've had stories where I remember the guy, you'll meet him tomorrow, Ish. He's at the studio that we'll be at. I met him on the stream online, and he used to ask me a whole lot of questions. And at the time when I met him, nothing was working out for him. And now everything is working out for him.
Yeah.
So it can happen where if you just stay at it.
Never give up.
And it will seem like, oh my God, this is never paying off, or my stuff is never getting heard, or I'm never blowing up, or da.
Yeah.
I've seen it with so many artists. One song can change their life. I remember when Alicia Keys was pounding the pavement in Atlanta. She used to be signed to a production crew called Noontime, and nobody knew who she was. And she was a little overweight then, and she had that Falling song. I'd heard that song 4 years before it came out.
Oh wow.
And she used to. I remember her going from camp to camp playing that song, and I could probably guess that she was discouraged at one point. And then Clive Davis signed her, put that song out, and the rest is history. So it's just one thing that can change your whole life.
Yeah.
So you just got to keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for coming onto this podcast.
Absolutely,
I really appreciate it. It's been a fantastic conversation. And thank you so much.
I'm so glad I came. It was great. Good to be here.
Thank you.